Now we are going beyond that paradigm of just chat, with AI being under the iceberg. So it operates in two modes. One is a co-pilot mode where it's assisting you.
Right.
Another one is an autonomous mode where you don't know that it's assisting you. It's just doing its thing under the iceberg. The most valuable AI are the ones that are just doing it under the iceberg. So that, I have a very strong feeling that AI needs new UI and AI is less UI. When I said less UI, it means that AI is doing the things that it's not going to bother you with. Today, if you go to some of the e-commerce websites, if you start buying, looking at a box of paint, the personalization things, you are just remodeling your home, and just every other product you see is related to paint. I'm just interested in it because of something else. And that something else is derived when you see the context in the large scale, right? So that context, the ability to process context starts, and if we leverage it, makes us really, really use AI in very beautiful ways.
How can end users or customers contribute in co-creating that experience?
It was interesting you say that, because I call this a million suns. The idea of a million suns, rather than having, designing a website that's just a website, for example, an e-commerce website, for example, right? Let's take the simplistic thing. Rather than designing one website and personalizing from that website to all the million people come in.
Yeah.
My hypothesis, and I've talked to many folks, and we have working technology around that, is everybody has their own website for this retailer. So it's a million website for million people. And it's exactly personalized with your data, with your personal information, with safety checks and the agents you deserve for your condition, particular characteristics, dynamically built, right? That's your website. So it's arjunchopra.retailer.com.
All right.
Is your website. With the intent, I think it's misapplied today. I'll say, again, it's not a technology problem, it's an application of technology problem today about intent, deriving intent. Deriving intent should be looked at as a build-up rather than, a point in time where you ask something and I get intent.
People expecting like a magic wand. It's like, you tell me what
you
my
observe
intent
something and so especially with the power of LLMs, we can actually pass it certain context, get results, and go next step and ask another thing or test another. So it's a test and learn thing. You build intent, right? So I think practitioners do not take the time to build to understand intent using a build-up mechanism. And there are key, simple, programmatic principles of deriving intent, which I think tool chains as well as practitioners do not practice it. They think of it as one dot in time versus it's a traversing a path by you actively pursuing it and refining it. That refinement doesn't happen. We have stepped back to a completely data oriented world where we just live in segments, audience segments after segments after segments, rather than using traversing context. And with LLMs, we can actually ask questions or pass something that a user did to an LLM and get results, and then pass it in a bigger context and get the fuller result. So there's so many interesting ways to do it, and the tools exist, technology exists, we just don't apply it.
But what are some of those emotional hotspots, for that whole agentic design in the customer journey?
Color space. So we have worked with colors and color spaces that connect with people. We have easy experiments as soon as people start navigating in how what's the closest color space to the user. And color makes a big difference. Just changing the hue by 15% up or down changes how the person feels about the software they're looking at. Okay,
Yeah.
so within about 5 to 10 seconds of navigation, we can find out which color space a user is having more affinity to engage in, and then change it to warmer tones or cooler tones in pretty much real time. Bring in multimodality if possible, where we as designers, and I'm including myself, have learned to create forms and grids. The whole world is full of crud: create, read, update, and delete.
Right.
Apple Maps versus Google. Apple says, take the exit 2 lights ahead. Very
Right.
human way of saying it.
Right.
Rather than saying take the next exit 500 meters
Meters
ahead.
away. Huh.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah.
It's a very it's simple things that we can do. We already have the technology to do it. So again, multimodality is important. Reducing clutter by having empathy with the user, and you can do a lot with AI by having lesser UI needed.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CX with Chopra, where we talk about everything customer experience. And today, so we are at that edge of something transformative. We're talking about AI tools which are no longer logic machines. They are probably learning to recognize, to respond, and even anticipate human emotions. But the question is, how do we humanize that experience without making it artificial? To talk about all of that, I have my guest with me, Mr. Sunil Karkera. He's a designer, engineer, successful entrepreneur with about 2.5 decades of experience in customer experience design and digital transformation. He's co-founded successful startups in the Silicon Valley, has led design business tech teams at major companies. He's also the former CEO of Bond Group, a tech Mahindra company. And most recently, he's the founder of Soul of the Machine, a company exploring frontier of emotional intelligent AI, which is I'm personally very excited to talk about as well in this podcast. And one interesting thing which I read about you is that you studied typography, print, and design from University of Arts in Zurich. So I want to start with, first, welcome to the show, and I want to start with talking about whatever you have learned in typography design. How has that helped you in getting to design customer experience?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Arjun. This is, it's an honor to be in your podcast. I've been following your channel, and I think it's one of the beautiful expression of science and soul that you bring together in your channel.
Thank you.
Fantastic work. I'm looking forward to many more episodes of this as you bring in great guests. In terms of your question around typography, I think typography is kind of the ultimate expression of communication. So it's about not just how we write, but how we express that writing in the finer detail of how we write it, in the humanist side, the grotesque side, the industrial side of writing. And writing is reflection. Most of the time, when we write it down, and the way we write it down communicates the message aptly. I think typography has informed me a lot about focusing not just on the message itself, but how the message is actually communicated to have the highest form of impact,
Yeah.
both at the science and the soul.
Yeah, because why I bring that up is because typography, if you look at, it's the same word, same letter, but different typography, like you said, invokes different emotions, delivers this different impact, and
Yeah.
very similar to CX. Pretty much every organization out there has got all the ingredients to deliver that. From a tech
Yeah.
standpoint, capability standpoint. but it's how do they, what do they make with that, what's the recipe, and then deliver. So I think that's what really connects people to the brand.
Absolutely. I think, as you said, I firmly believe that most organizations have the recipe as well as the required ingredients to make the nice,
Yeah.
nice dish.
Yeah.
It's ultimately it comes to packaging. you know
Right.
it's how you package it is really key. Typography is also the packaging of
Hmm.
it, and I think a lot of companies miss the packaging, and packaging is where the experience meets the customer most of the time.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first impression of,
Hmm.
like, love at first sight. So it's pretty
Exactly.
much like that. It has to. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
And also, interestingly, I mean, now I think whenever we talk about artificial intelligence, I think one also gets a bit of philosophical as well. It's like philosophy. So again, coming to soul of the machine as well, because you're looking at intersection of human emotions, AI, customer experience, uh, you know, which seemed philosophical a few years ago, but now it's coming to reality. So where does this whole inception started of this whole
So it
idea?
started in 1982. So I
Wow.
was I was
Yeah.
a I was an early nerd. I started writing code when I was 7 on an 8-bit Atari, and I was not introduced to design at the time. But I read this book by Larry Kidd called "Soul of the New Machine," and I
Wow.
still have that copy. It got me hooked into in this, and then as time passed on, I did a good number of engineering and computer science, but learned from we all learn from the giant shoulders of giants. So I learned from it, and I met one personality who told me that my design sucks, and if I don't do good design, I'm not, I don't see the whole picture. I don't deliver the whole picture. So he told me to go to school. So midlife, I went back to school and came back, studying typography as well as print and design. But what got me into thinking about the inception further is that our our everything we do today, the state of the art is very deterministic.
Hmm.
So we are designing in design time. What AI is providing is designing at runtime. So we
Hmm.
learn at runtime, and AI gets better and better at runtime. It's dynamic planning, it's reflection, it's goal seeking. Those attributes of AI will make our customer experience better. you know Rather than personalizing before the fact, personalizing at runtime and designing for that personalization is an extremely interesting tool that we have with AI that we can leverage now for delivering that customer experience that hits the soul. And we think the reason why we named the company Soul of the Machine is because we think the soul of the new machines is actually this non-deterministic AI rather than deterministic code that is running the machine in the future. So that's why we
Hmm.
call all the work we do is putting a soul into the machine.
Very interesting. But if you look at, the whole AI pilots which are happening, and now a lot of companies, I mean, we know, I mean, a lot of innovations came, they went by. I mean, uh, but when you look at AI, it's no more a fad. Everybody has realized that, and probably in last year or two, people have now figured out what are the use cases they want to go ahead and build on. But still, if you see, some of the classic AI use cases are still on the customer service or call center that people are looking at. But when you talk about creating experience on the fly, I'm assuming it's not just those call center or chatbots, it's much beyond that, I believe. I mean, talking
Absolutely.
about now. Hmm.
Absolutely. Right now, the rate of change with AI is just outstanding today.
Hmm.
We're doing about 14,000 years of innovation per year if we
Right.
go
Wow.
back to the origin of steam engine in the 1700s, James
Hmm.
Watt. So we're doing 14,000 years of innovation per year. right? That's
Hmm.
the rate of change of the world, and AI is driving a lot of change. And later we'll have an opportunity to drill down into some of those opportunities. But if we look at how we are using AI today, the the big paradigm shift happened with chat being a paradigm of communicating with a kind of a sentient AI,
Hmm.
ChatGPT, for example, when it came out
All
in
right.
2018. And that's the best paradigm we know today, to type a bunch of chat text. And for the first time, we are not just telling the machine is asking questions and
Hmm.
we converse, and it's actually guiding us to something. And then now it's starting to do something that's
Hmm.
new. So we are also adjusting to that experiential thing. And now we are going beyond that paradigm of just chat, with AI being under the iceberg. So it
Hmm.
operates in two modes. One is a co-pilot mode where it's assisting you.
Right.
Another one is an autonomous mode where you don't know that it's assisting you. It's just doing its thing under the iceberg. The
Hmm.
most valuable AI are the ones that are just doing it under the iceberg.
Hmm.
So that I have a very strong feeling that AI needs new UI and AI is less UI. When I said less UI, it means that AI is doing the things that it's not going to bother you with, right?
Hmm.
And automatically, like you have a colleague. So
Hmm.
the new paradigms where we are working on with our customers, for example, is in inventory rebalancing, actually using AI. And this is like completely non-fashionable old industry work that AI is doing,
Right.
out of the glare of the public view, right? It's doing inventory rebalancing to understand how to maintain that optimum set of inventory to have to save, say, a couple of $1 million from your quarter,
Right.
right? And it is not just predictive, it's actually understanding context, using an LLM,
Hmm.
from that context deriving, understanding about your orders, your supply chain, and looking at the bigger picture just like a human does. But
Right.
AI has this innate sense of processing a lot of information and putting a lot more things in context to make
Right.
decisions, which we don't have. So leveraging AI in that ways is very meaningful.
Hmm.
And the second one, which is more I'm more passionate about, is like personalization with a significantly big context. You want to
Hmm.
understand the entire journey of the user, not just a momentary slice of time,
Right.
and then personalize. Rather than, today, if you go to some of the e-commerce websites, if you start buying, looking at a box of paint, the personalization thinks you are just remodeling your home, and just every other product you see is related to paint. I'm
Hmm.
just interested in it because of something else. And that something else is derived when you see the context in the large scale, right?
Hmm.
So that context, the ability to process context starts, and if we leverage it, makes us really really use AI in very beautiful ways.
Hmm. Interesting. Because most of the use cases that I've heard of is like you're saying, inventory management. They're more behind the scenes, which deliver that value at scale.
Mm.
But transforming the whole customer experience is still, I feel, yet to be seen in its true sense that we are seeing, the whole, because you talked about AI is new UI and probably AI is less UI, like you mentioned,
Mhm.
which means, how I'm inferring is that there's need for, you know, it's reducing the need for those visible UI elements. It's more intent driven, understanding that intent and just giving me or nudging me towards that experience. But we're not seeing those cutting edge, I mean, transformations. Is it also because, I mean, the whole trust in AI, or the seeing the true value at scale? Because typically companies tend to take the safe choice, but I feel that the safe choice is actually the riskiest choice if
Mhm.
you're not doing it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the safety issues we're past it now. I
Hmm.
think we have solved a lot of the safety problems, especially using technologies like evals and guardrails,
Hmm.
right? So we are able to set up like your code needs test cases. You can write evals
Hmm.
for adversarial testing of LLMs and their
Hmm.
input and output using evals and guardrails. You can also set up guardrails, and then you also have deep observability right now with technologies,
Hmm.
observability technology. So you can see what AI is doing. So the safety issues are, not fully solved, but is largely getting solved, right?
Hmm.
In terms of are these use cases going out of like just inventory and call centers and all those things? Yes, it is starting to go. I think that the last 2 years has been the year of prototypes. So there's a
Yep.
lot of POCs that have been pulled in, and but what the realities we are seeing is the boards are asking the CEOs, what are you doing with AI, and the CEOs are asking the CIOs, what are we doing with the AI? And major flow of capital has started in shifting the stack to leverage AI, because the we are probably bogged down by the lack of creativity in thinking about application of AI. And this was kind of the early days of internet,
Hmm.
where or the early days of mobile, when, if you remember, Arjun, people used to say when the smaller screens came out, like, what can you do with a small 4.5 inch screen?
Yeah.
And now 80% of commerce runs on 4.5 inch screen,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's the fidelity of the tools started increasing. So the tool chains today for AI is accessible, but not fully accessible to the people who will make those changes. So it
Hmm.
is that tools evolution will bring us a lot of the ability to create. We just rolled out for one of our customers an human capital management system using AI, which
Okay.
automatically monitors the sentiments of employees based on actions they do in different parts of the universe in the enterprise. It may be in
Hmm.
email, it may be in other enterprise systems, and all those things, and then tells the head of the
Hmm.
HR folks that I'm sensing the sentiments going towards negative, and
Hmm.
here are remedial actions you should say. We just published a paper on our website about that, and it says, okay, you should do an ENPS. It's all proactive, and
Hmm.
you can say, yeah, let's do that, and it'll generate the surveys that you want
Hmm.
to create, and you can make it stronger or softer by clicks of a button.
Hmm.
So radical automation. Employee experience is also customer experience,
Oh, absolutely. It's very interesting
right?
because typically, I mean, I'm not a big advocate of NPS, CSAT, or employee satisfaction because, or surveys, because it's more like postpartum.
Right.
It has happened in the past 3 months ago. I mean, there's nothing that you can do now.
Right.
It's only recovery from there. But you could
Exactly.
have control what's happening. I think with analytics, digital analytics, we try to do that. But now I think with the whole power of AI, we can actually anticipate what's going to happen in real time and take action as well. So that's very interesting.
That is the key, what you said, Arjun,
Hmm.
because I equally like you, I'm not a big believer in net promoter score,
Hmm.
and but the ability to sense it, and by
Hmm.
putting together a variant of signals and put
Hmm.
it in a very large context to understand the entire enterprise context,
Hmm.
in as soon as possible rather than waiting for 2 quarters, and
Hmm.
drive remedial action. Survey is one of them, which is a
Hmm.
signal. You can do so many things, and the AI actually recommends and benchmarks it against what you did earlier had this,
Hmm. Impact.
what others did earlier had this outcomes.
Hmm.
So I think HR should use these superpowers.
Absolutely. And even personalization. I mean, if I take the same employee example, I mean, there's so many, like 16 different personality types or even more. So with each personality type, it can understand the sentiment, based on what you
Yes,
know of the employee, past context. And it's great for employee experience as well, because then you get, the tone of the message, even from the HR or from, from the organization, because then, it'll resonate well with you, because some people may find the same tone offensive, somebody may feel, oh, it's normal. So
absolutely. Absolutely. It's the the ultimate holy grail of segment of one.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But now drawing a parallel with customers, where we're talking about anonymous customers, let's say. Now when we have to, one is trying to understand the intent of the customer. Let's say if somebody's come to my website or the app, let's say website, till the time somebody has logged in, I mean, I will not know who the user is. Classic problem I think we faced from an analytics perspective, because somebody would only log in if they're checking my account, or they have something in the cart and they want to check out, is when I'll log in. Till then I'm just browsing anonymously. Yes, through cookies I can understand what I did in the past, but I can still cannot capture PI information, all of that. So the trick was to always try to segment people based on their engagement, activity, all of that. But now with AI coming into picture, so that two dimensions I want to discuss and explore with you. One is the whole intent driven journey. I mean, some of my previous guests, I was discussing that gone are those linear paths to purchase, where you'll do discovery, evaluation, purchase, post purchase, all of that. Now it's like infinite loops which are happening, in terms of what customers are doing. Now one is, if I understand the intent of the customer, let's, like the example you gave, I'm buying paint. Now if I can try to understand some more intent, I can change the whole experience going forward from there,
Mhm.
potentially with AI. One is this dimension, and how far you think we are in that, from an industry perspective, where we are. And the second part I want to discuss with you is, how can end users or customers contribute in co-creating that experience?
Mhm.
Or maybe they're both the same, maybe not. But how can I give some more inputs, and the experience I'm going to go through that website or app or any other interface is very unique, because I was part of building that experience.
Mhm.
So the responsibility shift, it's because right now, if I talk about Gen Z is Gen Alpha, their expectations from, I mean, from any brand is way above probably than what I have. Let's say I would still be tolerant, because I've seen audio cassettes, I've seen CDs, I've seen the evolution. But for them, everything should be just a click away and it should be available. So how can we involve the customer in co-creating, so they're equally feeling responsible, own the whole experience?
Sure. So in your I'll answer the second question first with
Hmm.
how can you
Hmm.
co-create. And it was interesting you say that, because I call this a million suns.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
idea of a million suns, rather than having designing a website that's just a website, for example, an e-commerce website, for example,
Hmm.
right? Let's take the simplistic thing.
Hmm.
Rather than designing one website and personalizing from that website to all the million people come in,
Yeah.
my hypothesis, and I've talked to many folks, and we have working technology around that, is everybody has their own website for this retailer.
Hmm.
So it's a million website for million people.
Hmm.
And it's exactly personalized with your data, with your personal information, with safety checks and the agents you deserve for your condition, particular characteristics, uh,
Hmm.
dynamically built, right? That's
Hmm.
your website. So it's arjunchopra.retailer.com
All
is
right.
your website. And you're contributing under proper evals and guardrails,
Hmm.
your voice, your personality characteristics, and connecting it to other services you use, so that the AI can actually get the context of more than your experience in that website.
Right.
Yeah, so it has to get a big bunch of personal context.
Hmm.
And not that we're doing it, but there was a particular experiment we did. Is we use a there's a journal I use called Day One,
Hmm.
uh, on iOS and Mac,
Hmm.
and I actually connected e-commerce with my journal, which I've been writing
Okay.
for 14 years. And
Wow.
the outcome of that, and I contributed my voice into it, so we have an experiment that works. And the outcome of personalization from personal context, that spans 14 years, the power of LLM actually came through.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think these kind of things will happen. We just don't have the tool chains to it today, and we don't have the safety mechanisms today properly. But it's not going to be stopped because of the lack of technology,
Yep, true. Like you say,
right?
14,000 years of innovation happening every year. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So I just connected my daily journal,
Wow.
very very personal things, right,
Uh,
into my own like e-commerce experiment,
uh,
right?
Interesting.
So it is fascinating that how personalization changes completely and becomes so empathetic to me and uses
Hmm.
my language to
Hmm.
communicate with me. So it's not content created by somebody else. This is an agentic commerce talking in the language I speak. And I have
Right.
every one of us have unique ways of communicating,
Right.
and it's speaking in my language,
Hmm.
in the way I speak. It's not created by a marketing content,
Hmm. It's a
you know.
digital twin in true sense. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going, and it's not like it's maybe less than a year away when we realize these things,
Yeah,
you know.
because we, I mean, we may be unaware, but we're leaving millions of digital traces out there, which it can
Indeed,
collect and so quickly join, the whole thing to form that picture of you.
absolutely, absolutely. This the earlier question, um, remind me. This was about you had a two-part question.
Yeah, the second was like we discussed how customers can co-create. The first was more around that how do we understand the whole intent and then change the experience, because that's
Right,
where we are
right,
seeing. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of companies talking about, a lot of clients I interact with. That's where the big agentic push that which is coming is to
right,
understand the intent. Even on the business intelligence side, BI side, if somebody wants a report, let's just understand the intent from the question to give that relevant data from whichever data table, data source, BI tool which
right.
is out there. So that whole
Yeah,
the whole universe around intent is I'm where I'm seeing it from my lens is where the whole push is going towards, and then that would translate into customer experience, as
yeah.
well.
With the intent, I think it's like it's misapplied today. I'll say again, it's not a technology problem; it's an application of technology problem today. About intent, deriving intent.
Hmm.
Um, Deriving intent should be looked at as a build-up rather than
Hmm.
rather than a point in time where you ask something and I get
Yes,
intent, or
people are
you
expecting like a
observe
magic wand. It's like you tell me what
you
my
observe
intent was.
something and yeah. So
Yeah.
um, especially with the power of LLMs, we can actually pass it certain context,
Hmm.
get results, and go next step and ask another thing or test another. So it's a test and learn thing. You
Hmm.
build intent, right? So I
Right.
think practitioners do not take the time to build to understand intent using a build up mechanism. And there are key like simple principle like programmatic principles of deriving intent, which
Hmm.
I think tool chains as well as practitioners do not practice it. They
Hmm.
think of it as one dot in time
Hmm.
versus it's a traversing a path by you actively pursuing it
Hmm.
and refining it. That refinement doesn't happen. We have stepped back to a completely data oriented world
Hmm.
where we just live in segments, audience segments after segments after segments,
Hmm.
rather than using a traversing context. And
Right.
with LLMs, we can actually ask questions or pass something that a user did to an LLM
Hmm.
and get results, and then pass it in a bigger context and get the fuller result. So there's like so many interesting ways to
Right.
do it, and the tools exist, technology exists, we just don't apply it.
Interesting, because I was talking to another guest and he spoke about that there are two types of journeys. One is where you see and buy, and the other is where you talk and buy.
Hmm.
See and buy is like typical e-commerce apparels. You will see thousands of products and then you'll buy. Talk and buy is more insurance or automobiles where you have to discuss, finance. And it's
Yeah.
interesting that in those two different contexts, how, I mean, especially when you talk and buy, the whole LLMs can become so powerful because it can, like you're saying, add those different digital interactions
Yeah.
or past context, let's say your credit score, to the question that you're asking, and then make that into one common, and then understand the intent and give a response. So that will become so much more powerful.
Absolutely. I think your guest is so right about see and buy and talk and buy.
Hmm.
Really, I learned something. That's like a really good one. I
Hmm.
will keep. One of the luxury chains CEO I was talking to
Hmm.
her, and she was mentioning about an interesting thing. This company is a giant in luxury,
Hmm.
jewelry and watches and all those things. And I was meeting her, and she said something really interesting to me, which was our business where we used to talk to customers and help them select $1 million jewelry.
Hmm.
And customers use in the old days, customer like white glove means talking to a human. In the
Hmm.
new day now, our clientele thinks white glove is 100% 0 to 100 digital self service.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
they do not want you to interfere with talking to a person and taking that time. If you can provide a digital service that they can 100% go all the way,
Hmm.
that is white glove for them,
Interesting.
which is interesting. And this is like a major jewelry chain,
Hmm.
uh, and they're a French atelier, like they
So is
make.
it? I'm just trying to understand the whole consumer psychology. I mean, I love that part. Is it because customers would prefer a certain, they would feel a certain privacy in not talking to a human, or, and they would feel more comfortable in just sharing. For example, let's say if I mean, I may not be their TG target audience, but if I go to a store, even if I were to buy 1,000 or let's say $10,000 watch, I may still be hesitant in asking, okay, or saying my budget is 10,000, because I know in that, the whole range could be wide. I just want to explore. So people may be hesitant to talk or ask questions to a human, maybe, but maybe if it's so completely digitized, they'll feel much more comfortable, sharing what they want to share, asking any type of questions, especially in
that
a
was
luxury setup. Hmm.
that was number one hypothesis, actually,
Oh, is it
which
interesting?
is that unabashed way you can interact with the digital person without actually being judged. You know,
Hmm.
you because as humans we are continuously acting.
True.
You know,
Yep.
when we have other people, we are always acting. We are actors more than
Right.
humans,
Right.
right? We are we are acting to be looking good all the time, right?
Right.
So it takes away that part when you're
Right.
interacting with a non-human entity,
Right.
if I
And
say that
then
way.
you'll know the true actual buying levers. What is it that will convert
Indeed,
somebody? At
right. So
yeah.
yeah, if your digital experience can give that almost human level without the
Hmm.
customer needing to act as if they're working with
Yeah.
talking to another person, that just opens up probably a multitude of opportunities in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
But to that, coming to that point, comes a dimension which you also speak about a lot, is emotional intelligence in
Hmm.
AI, because that becomes very key.
All right.
It's because it's not just the intent that I want to do this, or I want to buy a, let's say, a watch for my wife for her birthday. It's not that. It's all to also to do with the tone, with what's my mindset, what's my emotional emotions that going through.
Right.
So what's your view on that, and why is, and I mean, we all know it's very important in CX, because that's something which will either convert or
Yeah.
deliver what that user wants quickly, or it's going to take you 10 more interactions if you
Sure.
don't get it, or somebody will probably switch to another brand. But how do
Yeah.
you bring that in AI as well?
See, even before AI, I used to always tell engineers and designers I used to work with
Hmm.
that the systems we design should be noble and gentle.
Hmm.
So everything should have an undo. So as humans, we make mistakes, and if you
Interesting.
don't design software that you click something, you made a mistake, you can undo it, right?
Hmm.
And if the software should not be judgmental, it should be noble and gentle, handhold you, right? And
Hmm.
with AI, we can do that better because we
Hmm.
don't have to have fixated error messages. You know,
Hmm.
press any key to enter.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
fixate it all the time with a
Right.
with an X mark, right?
Yeah.
So we can actually, because of the power, because LLMs, for example, transformer based LLMs, with the next word prediction, can actually use very sophisticated language that is tailored for that context, right?
Hmm.
So again, this is not a matter of not having the capability, it's a matter of not having tried to
Hmm.
do it. It's again an application problem rather than a technology problem,
Hmm.
right? Today we have the ability to communicate in text rather than showing a form or an error message or something, or
Hmm.
voice, right? Where we can voice is one of the best empathetic ways to communicate. You may have seen last week 11 labs came out with a new way where you can put expressions of eagerness, anxious, all
Hmm.
those things, and the voice changes, and they can also communicate in different tones and dialects and stuff. So I think that uh, humanizing that communication will probably add a little bit more soul to software
Hmm.
in how we handle these situations. And I think uh, less, I would say lesser and lesser predefined canned messaging, and more
Hmm.
contextual understanding and communication is required when we design
Right.
software.
And that'll be like personalization in its true sense. It's not
Yeah,
like a canned algorithm or a flow chart where
exactly,
you're still bucketing people into segments. End of the day,
exactly.
then.
Yeah.
But what are some of those emotional hotspots, for that whole agentic design in the customer journey, if there are any? You know.
Yeah, so in terms of no, easy things is color space. So we have worked
Hmm.
with colors and color spaces that connects with people. We have easy experiments as soon as people start navigating in how what's the closest color space to the user, and color makes a big difference. Just changing the hue by 15% up or down changes how the person feels about the software they're looking at. Okay,
Yeah.
so within about 5 to 10 seconds of navigation, we can find out which color space a user is having more affinity to engage in, and
Hmm.
then change it to warmer tones or cooler tones in pretty much real time. Okay, and there's
Wow.
a color is the first impression you get of the world because we see through our eyes,
Right.
right? And it's a very low hanging fruit, easy win
Hmm.
to change the luminosity, color space, bright, the warm to cool tones in
Yeah.
5 to 10 seconds. Okay,
And certainly
you
brings
will get.
that comfort with the experience. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, it gives you comfort. And sometimes folks have visual, challenging visual circumstances. They're
Hmm.
in a low lit environment, high lit, so it's very much real time. You have to do it for every instance. It's
Hmm.
not that once you know about them, that's the color space they'll use, and it
Hmm.
change with the aging and all those things. So it's a very simple thing to do. So one is visual. Bring in multimodality if possible,
Hmm.
where we as designers, and I'm including myself, have learned to create forms and grids. The whole world is full of crud: create, read, update, and delete.
Right.
We are
Right.
really great with creating forms, but if you have an application where you're instead of typing in, tell a user to take a picture of it and automatically decipher things and fill the form for them.
Hmm.
So the way we design applications can be much more humanizing.
Right.
That's a human connection. uh, taking a picture and uploading it is a simple way. Build Have speech input
Hmm.
and talk back if there's an opportunity for the system to talk back. Allow the computer to speak back. If there's an option, it brings in a solid connection. Our research has showed that if a computer talks back to the person already starts feeling like they are friends.
Right.
Okay, they take its advice, they take its recommendation, rather than if you show it as a piece of text or a message,
True.
right? So even
Google,
our experiment. Yeah, sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
I'm saying Google Maps is a classic example. Yeah.
Yes, Google
Yeah.
Maps is a classic example.
Yeah.
Yes, and I would one up there where Apple Maps versus Google. Apple says, uh, take the exit 2 lights ahead.
Hmm.
you know Very
Right.
human way of saying it,
Right.
rather than saying take the next exit 500 meters ahead.
Meters away.
Yeah,
So
so
true. Yeah.
it's a very it's simple things that we can do. We already have the technology to do it. So again, multimodality is important. um, Reducing clutter by having empathy with the user, and you can do a lot with AI by having very lesser UI needed, so that
Yeah.
it's very much like, to use your word, intent driven. You finish a user's intent and finish through user's intent, finish a goal for the user. Like, you build a UI that looks like you're completing the goal of a user, rather
Hmm.
than the user coming to a boring place to work and they have to just click some forms
Right.
to get by. Right, that intent driven goal seeking UI is very emotionally connecting to the user.
Hmm.
And so we are working with a very large company that makes enterprise software, and we are rethinking their user experience for the users of their. And so we're going away from we're doing a lot of research right now. We're going away from a gazillion forms and gazillion, and doing goal seeking UI. And goal seeking UI is very interesting. Yeah.
Hmm. I'm
More.
interested. Yeah.
Yeah, they are more personal. Like, you allow, and all the powers of the universe comes, the user feels is coming to help them accomplish their task.
Hmm.
And you give them credit for completing it, not like a fake credit, but something that
Hmm.
makes with language, how you say, rather than saying, after clicking a button, saying success,
Hmm.
that doesn't count.
Hmm.
You say what they finished in very reasonable language, and they love it. you
Hmm.
know yeah, we by doing this, the expense report is approved,
Hmm.
and the user whose expense you approved will get
Yeah.
the check in the next one day. It makes you feel good that somebody is getting a check.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So give that end result,
Hmm.
make them happy, work out that emotional messaging, and your software will connect with the user.
Interesting. And that's what, because, like so many other things, I think the whole world of phrase of humanizing AI, I think is soon going to get so overly used and abused to a point where,
Yeah.
just like the word strategy, everybody is like saying. But it's good to hear that, what actually humanizing an experience or AI backed experience would actually mean. So it's very interesting to know. And also, as there's this book by, I think, Dave Kahneman, where he talked about that memory of the experience is more important than the experience itself.
I would agree.
Yeah, so it's so true that now when we're talking about so many transactional things that we are used to doing, but end of the day, I mean, it could have been done so much better. Like, even if you complete a e-commerce order, you just thrown on a thank you page. I mean, a
Yeah.
standard thank you page, but that it's itself is such a captivating space where you could capture and change the whole feeling of the customer.
Yeah.
It's like when we come out of the any shopping mall with 10 bags, it's a sense of accomplishment, which
Absolutely.
which you miss in an e-commerce journey or online journey.
Yeah,
But nobody's going ahead to humanize that. So like you
yeah,
gave the whole Apple Maps versus Google Maps. So I think that's, it's not about tech like you're saying. It's more about that people have to think through it. It's
yeah,
no, yeah,
yeah.
it's, tech cannot be an excuse now.
Yeah, and like in the age of AI, there was an old question to Steve Jobs: "What do
Hmm.
you do at Apple?" And he said, "I play the orchestra."
Hmm.
And because
Yeah.
he's the ultimate editor. We have the ability now with AI to be that orchestra players. We have so
All
much
right.
tools to build and synthesize across, and the best contribution we can give to the orchestra is our humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
yeah,
And talk about, I mean, when we say AI, it comes with, everybody talking about challenges and risks. People talk about trust, people talk about hallucination, people talk about bias. But do you feel that it is only stopping people from trying things, doing things? It's not necessary that you have to try it on 100% of your customers' employees. Start small, start with, I mean, like every retailer has a friends and family, promotion to begin with, and then they roll it out. But why not do it something AI led experience for friends and family first, rather than, I mean, I understand trust in data. I mean, the whole data security is a red flag, needs to be taken care of. But some of the other things, do you feel that people are still very judgmental about it?
I think there's this old saying, right? What we don't see, we are afraid of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're kind of afraid of, and there's like real cases where AI can do a lot of things that we do, a lot of people earn living with, right?
Hmm.
So we're afraid of AI, we can't touch and feel it.
All right.
So we're afraid of it, but I would say that you know just to connect, when we did e-commerce in
Hmm.
1997, 98,
Hmm.
we didn't even have SSL.
Hmm. True.
It
Yeah.
didn't stop us from doing e-commerce, right? And then
Right.
this tools started, protocols started. So this is that
Moment.
a major part of the infrastructure is now ready for us to
Hmm.
build. So now we should build. And
Hmm.
I think to take your point, build on narrow cases right now, test and learn, and then actually leverage the broader horizontal cases.
Hmm.
So first, vertical narrow cases are the best. Apply AI for a couple of things and see, have a hypothesis and test the hypothesis.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Awesome. So
yeah.
coming to my last question, which I ask all my guests. So for those youngsters out there who are just getting into this, starting with their whole, journey, what is one advice you'd want to give them in terms of how should they go about not being overwhelmed with what's happening, that the whole AI and so many things coming up? Because you come from a very interesting and a unique mix of design, engineering, strategy, so coming from you, it's like, what would you advise, let's say, 10 years or 15 years younger Sunil now?
Sure, I would say that I wish I learned to see others' point of view faster in life. It took me a while. So to always put in other people's shoes and see the problems,
Hmm.
then you can design better solutions.
Hmm.
Number
Empathy.
two, I
Hmm.
would say, is learning to communicate well was important.
Hmm.
Even in the age of AI, it's never going to be unfashionable to communicating well.
True.
It's going to take people places when they do
Right.
it. And number three is learning to break down problems. In the age of AI, it's going to become even more important. Learning to break problems down and then using the right tools for those problems, right? That ability, we please, I would say to youngsters, do not become slaves of chat GPT
Hmm.
and Just if you have to write an essay or something, just don't dump it into chat gpt
Hmm.
and extract an output and not read it and submit it.
Hmm.
Take pen and paper, write it down, reflect on it,
Right.
do it the old fashioned way. Even in the age of ai, you'll
Yeah.
do you'll do better in the age of ai when you have control of communication,
Right.
writing, work, and when you truly understand it. So really put that first principles hat, really
Hmm.
understand the first principles, really use old tools
Hmm.
like pen and paper. Do
Right.
not neglect it.
Right.
uh,
Like,
you
yeah,
know
like they say, you don't learn from experiences, you learn from reflecting on those experiences.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, writing is the ultimate way of reflecting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And interesting because I've asked a lot of guests this question, and tech is not there in top two or three. It's like you said, it's empathy, communication, problem solving,
Yes.
I'm sure is going to be helpful to a lot of youngsters out there because you get so overwhelmed with running after tech, statistics, data science, all those things. But you still have to focus on empathy, communication, which are
Absolutely.
equally or rather more important skills.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Great learning experience. Thank you so much, Sunil, for doing this. I found very interesting, insightful, and loved the whole conversation. So thank you for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, Arjun. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I enjoyed it. I learned equally.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Thanks for watching. And do like, subscribe for more such insightful episodes.